Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. It is July already. Where does the time go? Soon it will be my 61st birthday. Where do the years go too? We got rain this morning. Now it's sunshine. Let's head over and see how the ficus are doing after their defoliation. Here they are, enjoying the sunshine. So you can see my ficus fancy here is leafing out really, really well. It's getting quite a crown on it. My very first bonsai, a ficus I grew from a seed, is also starting to push out really well now. It's not quite as far along as ficus fancy here, but it's this sun will certainly help it out along its way. The Schefflera here, I also defoliated in spring, and it's really filling out nice. Looking quite nice. You can see the canopy forming in this view here. Yeah, everything's leafing out really nice. Lots and lots of back budding. Lots of fine branches coming out. Really nice to see. I have so many trees I could work on today, but I have to pick one. And I think it's going to be the larch forest. I did quite a severe pruning of it in the last video, and a lot of partial defoliation on it. So it's over on the bench here. I'll get it out and I'll begin work on it today. When we last looked at the larch forest, it was a big fluffy blob. So I really thinned it, and it's looking good today. So I'll show you the before. I've completed the work on the larch forest. I still have to clean the landscape up, but I'm running out of time because I have to water all my trees outside tonight. It was a very hot and dry day today. So the forest is looking good. It's come a long way from that, green, overgrown bush that it used to look like. Yeah, I'll show you a shot of it before. I'm starting the work on the larch forest early in the morning because I think it'll take me a long time to get it all pruned up and looking good. And here is the after. So I still have to clean the landscape up and do some more kind of detailing on it. So you can see the new growth that's come out is much finer. This is the second flush of growth. And now it needs pruning again today. You can see some of the new shoots are getting quite long. So it needs a general tidy up. Some of my pruning wasn't quite so successful. If you look at the apex of this tree back here, I did lose a couple of branches, some finer branches. All the branches survived, but except maybe this one in the apex. It'll restore itself and look good eventually. So I definitely took the trees back to the limit. I wouldn't want to, do any harder pruning than I did to them, or needle thinning. The landscape is getting a lot of liverwort on it. We've had a lot of rain lately, and the liverwort is just spread. So I've got to clean up the landscape and clean up the trees. As my larch bonsai forest matures, it requires more and more maintenance on the forest to keep it looking good, to keep those trees tight and compact. So today I'm going to be pruning back that new growth, just pruning it off to keep it nice and short, and I'll get another flush of growth, a third flush of growth later in the year, and that growth will be even smaller and more compact. Today I'll also be pruning off my first flush of growth needles, the remaining long needles, so I'll just be picking that out by my hands, kind of just reducing the trees back to the secondary flush of growth. So there'll be a lot of work today, a lot of maintenance work on the forest. Here's an example of a branch, and you can see this is the latest flush of growth, and on the branch I have these really long needles left over from that first spring flush of growth, and they're very long, so I'm plucking those out with my fingers, getting rid of all these long needles, just leaving the secondary flush of growth on the branches. which are much more compact and much more neat and miniature looking. And you can use the 2-finger method here, where you come in and pluck them out with 2 fingers. And any needles that look, you know, a little brown, or they're not quite green and healthy looking, you can pluck those out too. The idea is just to clean up the forest, making it look neat and tidy. And also lets more light to all the new shoots, removing all these old needles. Any needles that are facing downwards can be removed. My next work on that same branch is to either pinch out the tips, the growing tips, so you can grab it with your fingers and pinch the tip out like that. Or you can come in with your scissors and just scissor prune off the tips of that new growth. Either way works just fine. Sometimes it's hard to get in with your fingers, so I generally use scissors. And if you're careful, you won't be cutting through the needles. You can kind of reach between them and just kind of shortening that new growth to maybe, you know, finger width or even smaller. Here's another shoot coming up here. And this pruning of the tips will cause more ramification, more branching. So one branch will hopefully divide into 2, creating more denser growth on the branch. And it'll zap the vigor out of that new growth, so it won't extend as much. And you should end up with a pretty nice compact branch. And the idea is to prepare the tree for fall, so it looks good at a fall show. Generally there's very few summer bonsai shows, so you know, you either have your larch looking good in spring or you have them looking good in fall. And in the summer you kind of it's their kind of growth and a period where they gain vigor and energy and health. So that branch is now pruned up. I still have a little needle thinning on it. I'll remove the needles on the bottom side of the branch. So here's that branch here. So I'm just coming in and plucking out all the needles that are facing downwards. Again, you know, thinning the branches, getting more light into the branch, so when it gets its 3rd flush of growth, all the branches will get light and you can get some good back budding. And if it's too tough to get in with your fingers, you can use tweezers also. So on this branch I can come in, it's hard to get in here, so I just come in and grab the needle with my tweezers and pull it out. Okay, so that's got that branch all pruned up, cleaned up, and looking good. The next step is just to let it grow, get a 3rd flush of growth that should be even more compact and should really fill this branch out with kind of dense new growth on it. I showed you the work I did on just one branch, so I have a lot of branches in this forest to go over, so it'll take quite some time, maybe even a couple of hours. So we'll come back once I've done this operation to all the trees in the forest. Any shoots that are really, really weak, I just leave alone. I mentioned that this branch was all pruned up and ready to grow. However, looking at it now, I can see on this tip I've got back buds. I've got one here and one here. So I can prune the tip off here, and I will, like this. And that makes that branch more compact, keeping my ramification and just bringing it back in size a little bit. So I'll also be doing that as I'm working on the trees, looking for opportunities to get my conical shape of these trees even tighter, so all the branches are closer to the trunk line, so it's not such a spreading wide tree. This type of work is really meticulous work. It takes a lot of observation. You've got to identify the old needles, weak areas of the tree you've got to let be. And you don't have to do all the work in one go. You can spread it out over several days, do a tree each day, or 2 trees each day, whatever. But it's important you do this work, because otherwise you won't have a tree that looks miniature. You'll have like a regular looking small larch. And the whole idea of this is to get everything miniaturized. And that's the magic of bonsai, is miniaturizing your trees so they look magical. So some of these new shoots are quite weak, and I'm just pinching the very tips out of them, and that will cause subdivision of your branches. So you get denser branching, but it doesn't take a lot of vigor out of the shoot. It just takes that growing tip off. I haven't posted any videos in the last few days because I was helping out with the First Nations Medicine Wheel Garden. We went to Kettle Point with Todd, and we picked up a whole bunch of medicine plants, native medicine plants. And then the next day we weeded and started planting them in the Medicine Wheel Garden. It was a lot of fun, but it was also very, very hot both days. I couldn't drink enough. It was just so hot. But yeah, so I'm still in the process of doing that. It rained the last couple of days, so I'll be back at that every now and then. And I'll show you an update to the community orchard gardens and the First Nations garden. So that will be coming maybe in this video or maybe in a later one. When we were down at Kettle Point picking up all the plants, I got a whole bunch of Pawpaw seedlings. They were just on the ground underneath the tree. So I've got all the firm ones, and I'm just soaking them in water. But I think I better move them because I'm putting all my larch clippings on the table here. So I'll get those on a tray, keep soaking them, and I'll plant them soon. I'll show you an update to the seeds, the Pawpaw seeds that Barb sent to me. Down here under the greenhouse bench is a tray that I planted all the seeds that Barb sent me from Michigan. And you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, at least 14 of them germinating, which is really, really good. So I'll be planting more of them. I do want to make a Pawpaw bonsai, and the rest of these will be planted in the First Nations garden eventually once they get bigger. Here is my largest Pawpaw seed to date. These seeds were collected from Kettle Point underneath a Pawpaw tree, and this is my one that is growing the tallest and strongest, and that was planted last year. Pawpaw trees are a native tree to North America, United States and Canada, and they get a large kind of tropical fruit on them. I've never tried the fruit, but they're supposed to be really delicious, so I'm hoping someday I'll get to try a Pawpaw fruit. Okay, back to work on the larch forest. I've been noticing on some of the branches, like right here, you can see a little bit of white, cottony, sticky, cottony fluff. So that is not good. That means there's, I think it's mealy bugs. So I've got to spray that area, and I will spray the whole trees. And I'll keep my eyes on it because they can be devastating to your trees. So I've really got to watch out for mealybugs. I've never had them in the past, but I had them in the plant room this year, and Now I've got them outside here, so I've got to be careful. Keep them under control. Keep my eye out for them. And really watch they don't spread and start to weaken the trees, because they can really do a number on your trees. So luckily, working on my trees more often, you notice insect problems quicker before they become a major problem, and you can spray them with the soap and water and hopefully get rid of your problem. I've been working away at the forest for over an hour. I've got a lot of this main tree pruned and plucked and pinched, and it's looking quite nice. If you compare it to the tree over here, this tree looks a little shaggier. It's not as clean underneath the branches. It just doesn't look quite as miniature as the main tree. So I'll keep at it. I think it's going to take a long time. I think it takes me like an hour for each tree at least. Maybe an hour and a half per tree. So it may be a multi-day operation. If I go underneath the forest here, here's a shoot I missed with the last pruning, and you can see how long it is. Very, very long. So that needs pruning back. Just to break things up, I've been doing some weeding, and you can see out the back here, there's some long weeds that are starting to flower. So I'm getting those pulled out, trying to get the roots. Yeah, you don't want weeds getting that strong. There's some grass here growing up. Pull that out too, getting the roots. Yeah, so that's got my weeding done, except for my liverwort, which I'll do in the end. So I'm just continuing working away on the trees. This is the back of the planting. I've noticed on the forest that there's a lot of shoots here that they're too young to be pinched back yet. They're just starting to emerge from the branches. So I'm going to wait on those for a week or so until they extend a bit more, and then I'll go in later and prune them up. I've been making really good progress on the larch forest, thinning it all out, trimming it. I think it's looking really, really nice. It looks really miniature. Looks beautiful in this light. So I'm not going to be able to finish it today. I'm going to have to come back tomorrow and, with fresh eyes and have a look at all the branches. I haven't got these two back trees done yet, so I'm still working away at it. But yeah, it's looking really good. I'm pleased with the progress. It's nice to get this job done and then let it grow once again. I've been working away after supper, and I think I've got, I would say, well, maybe 90% of the pruning done. The thinning, the pruning. So I still have to do a lot of cleanup on the landscape. I'll be doing that tomorrow morning. And I'll come back tomorrow and we'll try and get some nice shots of the forest in the sunlight. Hopefully we'll get sun tomorrow. But yeah, it's really opened the forest up. Lots more light to the inner branches. It's looking rather nice. I did go very hard on this tree, and you can see it's kind of struggling in the apex here, but all you need is like one branch and you can develop the rest off of it. So I'm happy. I mean, I had to thin that apex anyway. Obviously I went a little hard on it and I lost some branches up in the apex here, but that can all be pruned back and replaced, and I think it'll look quite nice in the end. Accidents like this where I've got a lot of branches in here, older ones that I've killed off accidentally, some on the inside from lack of light. You can see there's one over here that's dead. Yeah, there's branches throughout the forest that for some reason or another they die off, and it's part of the character of the tree. In nature, not every tree is full and perfect. Like you can see, this trunk line is very exposed in here, but it really adds to the overall look of the forest to make it look natural. It doesn't look like an artificial forest. If every tree was perfect, it just wouldn't look right. And I think I like the look of it. It looks like a real forest to me. So I think I'm going to leave it at that for tonight. The light is beginning to go. The sun will be setting in a few hours. Here is a look at what I took off today. So lots of growing tips, lots of the larger first generation needles. Over here I have quite a pile of needles and tips too. Yeah, so tomorrow I've got to get to that liverwort, clean the landscape up, and get some beauty shots of the forest. I just sprayed the entire forest with soap and water, and I gave it a good rinse. So hopefully I won't get any more mealybugs. I'll keep my eyes on it and keep spraying it every 3 or 4 days if more appear. But I think that should do it. I gave it a good soaking with the soap and water and a good rinse. So hopefully it won't affect the needles, the soap. I don't think it will, so I guess we'll find out in the future. I'll show you a preview of what's coming up soon in the bonsai zone. I'm going to be repotting my ficus benjamina root over temple into the new pot that Sophie made for me. Over here underneath my native red maple is the pot that Sophie made, the gray clay pot. I'm almost afraid to see how it'll look in the pot. I hope it looks good, but you never know. So we'll be trying that out very soon. Here's a look at the larch forest now. I'll just rotate it around a bit so you can kind of see a 3D view of it. Yeah, big changes from when it was all green and fluffy, and it looks much nicer now. I remember long ago when my larch forest was still young, in the middle of summer it was just a green shaggy blob. It looked terrible. You couldn't see the branch structure. All you could see of the trunks was the bottom little bit. And I saw someone else's larch in the middle of summer and it was all looking really, really good. And I asked them, how do you get your larches to look that good in the middle of summer? And they just said, proper technique, proper bonsai technique. And they wouldn't tell me what they did or anything. They just kept it a secret. And so since then, I've been trying to develop the techniques to achieve a good long-term larch image, maintaining the size and shape and the branch structure. And I think I'm getting closer. I think I've got still some learning to do. And yeah, you'll follow my adventures of this larch forest into the future as I try and perfect techniques to get them to look better and better every year. So that's all for part 1 of this series. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.